Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. And I need to start off straight away by saying this is going to be longer than 5 minutes. Originally, I did this as a 5-minute thing for a few reasons. Basically, I like the idea of a podcast that you can listen to on a very quick bus journey or a cigarette break or whatever. It doesn't have to be some amazing, huge, rambling thing. And I also like the fact that it kind of challenged me to get as much as I want to say into 5 minutes, kind of stop me rambling away and just waxing lyrical about stuff that I love. Instead, I kind of had to cut to the point. Every once in a while, I end up not having enough to talk about in 5 minutes. So, it kind of worked out quite nicely. But this is one that I've been talking about for quite some time. And I've been talking about it so much, in fact, that the guy who wrote it, Lonnie Nadler, I'm afraid I've only ever seen it written down. I'm not too sure how to pronounce it. Like the fact that I've been talking about it a lot and has sent me signed copies of every single issue. So I've got those at home, and my actual ones I bought myself are in the store right now, which I'm going to use as visual aids. And because it's Christmas Eve, I might just give them away to somebody in store today. I've already paid for them. They're mine. I can do what I like with them. And technically, I could sell all this and make a bunch of money because this has been optioned for a TV series with that dude out The Walking Dead involved. Excuse me. So it's going to be a huge thing, and the prices are rocketing for them. But I actually run a comic book store, and yes, it's a business, but it also means I want people to love comic books as much as I do. And this is, beyond all shadow of a doubt, the best thing I've read all year. Straight off the bat, I have to also say, yes, it's kind of a cowboy, western kind of thing. That doesn't necessarily mean it automatically deserves its place. So as before, we already had Savage Bastards didn't even make it into the top 10. Kill White Donovan only just made it in. That Texas Blood beat it, and that was not really a cowboy story. It's got a lot of tropes with it. This one is kind of, in its own way, pure cowboy without actually being pure cowboy. It's a story of Western revenge, which again, kind of my thing. But it does a little bit more than that. Like straight from the get-go, it actually uses timing to build up a sense of tension in a way that I think every Western should have something like that in. Think watching water drip off a guy's hat at a train station, waiting for people to turn up. A very slow zoom in on a snow-covered wooden Christ on a crucifix. All this kind of stuff, like just used with an orchestral score to drag you into what's going on and make you desperate to find out what happens next. Undone by Blood, they don't necessarily have that freedom because obviously it's a comic book, but they still manage to use timing very, very effectively while just using form of the comic book. That page on its own there, using the background of the gutters to have like just one captured moment, but everything else that's going on there is time progressing and conversations happening. And it is like broken. It's not just blah, 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 blah. You get the sense that because of the way it's written and the way it's presented, that happens over a very long period of time without them actually having to tell you. 10 minutes later, there's no box out. It does it just by explaining to you how it, just by showing you how it does it. And that is very, very what I'm like, love about cowboy stories. Like they genuinely, like, I can't really get it across how much when I see stuff like this happening in films and TV shows and even in books and comic books, I love that kind of thing. I'm a big fan of the slow build to begin with. And if it wasn't already like, definitely a cowboy thing, that is your first introduction to the main character. Now, yeah, 1971, clearly not going to be 1870 or anything like that. There's a bus in the background, a push bike, but there's something about like the way the belts are hanging there. She's got the boots, the hat on the handlebars. It's not riding a horse into town or anything, but it's still undeniably the opening of a Western. Can't say anything other than that. But it's not the first few pages. First few pages are actually a completely different story, where it does a narrative within a narrative kind of trick. Now, sometimes this really bugs the hell out of me. I, a few years ago, read The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and the premise of that is it's a guy telling his story to a chronicler, his chronicle, as it were. But in the middle of telling this story, he actually includes times he told stories to people. So you've got like a 3-layered story, and that's a rabbit hole nobody cares about enough to want to keep going down it, but he does it repeatedly. I was getting really sick of the entire thing. This one, it's more of a concurrent narrative. It's actually a book that she is reading, but the book doesn't really push like the same kind of stories and kind of ideals. Yes, it's another Western revenge story, but the book she's reading carries with it a little bit more of the if you seek revenge, bury it first, dig 2 graves. But her revenge story doesn't go that way at all. If anything, she's reading it and she gets the message. Her message from it is, be prepared to pay that price, because the revenge matters. If the revenge matters enough for you to risk that, you have to be willing to pay the piper. And as the story unfolds, you also realize that it's happening in a town where people have, if not like gone along with it, there's been like a silent consent of this kind of thing happening, which means she's going against an institution and an organization and a community as well. So the price becomes higher and higher as it goes on, and she's paying it. She pays for it in blood repeatedly, but it doesn't stop her. She's fully aware of what she's doing. Her lesson from it is, this is how you need to go about to get revenge, and it's not going to stop her. It's not the same message as the book, but the book uses that story very effectively to inform the main story, and it's wonderful to see this happen, because it's not just like a lack of narrative flair, just to like, oh, well, I can't be bothered with subtext, so let's just have this other story literally explain what I'm doing. There's none of that. It actually just does it for a very, very good reason. And as the story progresses, you move away from the slow burn. Although don't get me wrong, there's constant bits where the timing of the pages are really, really important. You get some brutal action. I'm just going to show you one page of the action here. Again, this is the timing of the page is all important here. The quickness of the motion, the quickness of the cuts shows that is happening in a very small amount of time, as opposed to dragged out like it was on the previous page. This is just a masterful bit of craft here. You can't really deny this. It's Writers Uncrooked. Zach Thompson as well is the writer. I just kept a comment that he's actually the writer. It's Sammy Cavella. There's an accent over the A. I apologize again if I'm mispronouncing it. Who does the artwork for it? And how they throw the pages together is obviously working with the writer and the artist together, because it's such a unified experience, a unified voice that they're putting out there, that it has to be a collaborative effort, including the fact that, yes, you get like the same kind of artwork throughout, and it's not like high concept. There's no like really swish computer coloring. It looks very organic and very, very natural. It uses its coloring and its lack of coloring very, very well throughout. And even the side stories have the same style of art. The only difference is you generally get a little bit more of that sepia toned kind of thing, and it's far from a subtle difference. It's impossible not to notice it, but it's just a way of doing it in a very that's very, very effective, especially if you watch a lot of cowboy movies or get into this kind of thing at all. It just works really, really well. But they don't rely on that. Halfway through, there is a drug-induced moment, and again we have a nice little bit of timing going on there, just how that page is broken down for a chase scene, what's going on. That's really, really cool. But then you get the actual experience here. Now, when it comes to doing drug experiences in comic books, I am almost always let down. I don't think artistry has moved on from the 70s psychedelic kind of thing. And every time I see something like that, I think, good Lord, if I ever take LSD, I hope it's not like that. It'll be very disappointing and boring. I've seen it so many times. But because I've never done it, I've never done any drugs, in fact. I'm actually, I drink, but that's it. There's no way for me to know what it looks like at all. But there's a trick in this which I think is exceptional, because they use the paneling and the gutters to have a sense of vertigo. You have her losing balance and running across her own sense of self, and it's completely unnerving and disturbing. Yes, they still like the psychedelic kind of stuff going on there. There's the shorthand which they're using, and I don't really hold against them too much. But it shows that they can do more, that they actually have the experience in the game and the confidence actually to try and do something different to show a drug experience, and trust that it'll be good enough that it'll get across exactly what they want. And that really did. That was confusion, panic, vertigo, completely and utterly, trying to grab hold of something when the world will not let you get your feet steadied underneath you. And it's brilliant that it does it. Throughout the comic book, stuff like that. I quite often talk about form, and sometimes I worry that I'm going to put off a lot of people, because if I'm only doing up to 8.5 minutes now, if I'm only doing a 5-minute thing, these people might not be like as much into comic books as I am. They might just be like, well, what does Batman get up to today? Which is cool, that's fine. But for me, when a comic book is this good, it's kind of criminal not to talk about it. It's doing the creators and the publisher, actually, for giving them the time and the resources to do this, it's doing them a disservice, because they are elevating the form here in a way that I think more people should feel confident to do. It's why I've been reading a lot more of the smaller pressings at the moment. This is Aftershock, by the way, but AWA and Volt and Scout and Comics Ahoy, they're all doing really interesting things at the moment, because, yes, there's a huge amount of interest in the Marvel Universe, cinematic stuff, and the DC or movie stuff like that. But that's getting people into comic book stores, we hope, and it gives them a chance to try something different. When I was getting into comic books when I was a kid, I remember reading Gru and thinking that was amazing because it wasn't what everyone else was reading. I like the idea that a teenager could come in at the moment, try out something a bit different, and find something like that, and not just have another four-color comic talking about mass vigilantism or superpowered aliens. It's something that's far more real, far more human, a lot darker, definitely a lot darker, but also a more complete story. Like everything I needed in the narrative arc is in there. It went off on some places which I wasn't expecting, but they all fed into the main story and they all did it brilliantly. There's a reason why this is the best thing I've read all year. It's potentially the best thing I've read in several years. And I just want to say thank you to everyone involved in making it. Thank you all for sitting with me for 10.5 minutes. I really could carry on talking about this one for even longer. And if anyone comes in the shop today, I probably will. But it's Christmas Eve. I don't know. It could be absolutely dead. But that being said, hope you all have a wonderful Christmas. Thank you for listening and watching all these, by the way. I've only started doing the videos fairly recently. I'm still only reaching like maybe a dozen people at a time, but I'm having so much fun doing it to give me a chance to actually, I don't know, just get things off my mind and talk about stuff that interests me. And weirdly, even though I'm in a comic store on my own, looking at a laptop screen, it at least feels like there's other people involved in this, and I hope that somebody's might see this and think, you know what, I'm going to give that a try, because you totally should. Oh, also, there's a second series coming out soon. I think March or April or something like that. I can't remember the exact date. If you have a local comic book store, go and tell them you want it. You will not be disappointed. Anyway, that's it for me. I'll be back in the new year now. There's literally nothing else for me to do. So have a day. Here's to 2021 being better. Bye. Alexa,